Hey there, it's me Eden. Welcome to Crossdressing Adventure Stories. Today I'm going to share with you cross-dressing adventure stories called Office Colleague Caught Me in Airport, Part 3. So, if you're new to the channel, then please consider subscribing and be a part of our inclusive community. When Martina's alarm clock woke her up the next morning, Eric was no longer there. On her suitcase was a small note with his address and phone number and an invitation if she wanted to spend another night with him. Martina went to take a shower a little wistfully, because she would have liked to spend another night with Eric, but she had to make her way back in the evening. When Martina got out of the shower, she had a message from Astrid on her smartphone. "Hi sweetie, for today I expect the following. You may wear your suit to the customer appointment, but underneath you are already completely Martina. Oh yes, the high heels go perfectly with the suit. And right after the appointment you change and send me the photo, immediately. Have fun dear." Martina swallowed dryly. Since she still drove to the customer with Finnish colleagues, she simply wanted to defy Astrid's tasks. She was simply afraid to reveal herself to her colleagues, at least wearing high heels. Nevertheless, she got ready as Martina and was already standing in the bathroom in front of the mirror, ready to put on her makeup. Then it crossed her mind that a man with makeup would be even more noticeable and put makeup and lipstick aside. She had put on her chic lacy underwear but left out the silicone breasts. She also wore sheer pantyhose. She pulled on the suit that made her Martin again. Then a thought shot through her head. She still had some time. Why shouldn't Martina go to breakfast and Martin only come out afterwards? She put the suit back on the bed, changed into her suit and pushed the silicone prostheses into the bra. Martina put on makeup, put on her high heels and went to breakfast. The breakfast room was very busy. She only got a seat with 2 men at a table for 4. She enjoyed breakfast and didn't pay any attention to her neighbors until she was spoken to. "Excuse me, madam, I will not offend you, but I would like to know if you are a real woman?" Martina looked at her counterpart a little perplexed, but then replied with a smile, "No, I am not offended. And also no, as you most probably recognized, I am not a real woman, I am only a part-time woman." They started talking about it until Martina had to say goodbye. She quickly went upstairs to the room, took off the costume and put on the suit and, completely automatically, put her heels back on. Then she quickly packed the things in the suitcase and set off. Arriving in the lobby, she saw her neighbors from breakfast getting into a taxi. The gentleman who had addressed her waved at her again and closed the car door. Martina walked out and a hotel employee at the door asked her if she needed a taxi. Martina nodded and he took care of the vehicle. Moments later, the taxi pulled up in front of her and she gave the customer's address. A good 10 minutes later she was standing in front of the customer's main building, waiting for her Finnish colleagues. Only now did she realize that she was wearing the high heels after all and her breasts were still in the bra. In a panic, she was just about to dig her men's shoes out of her suitcase when her colleague greeted her. She had known Henri for a long time, but greeting him in high-heeled women's shoes made her rather nervous. Henri took one look, smiled at her and gave her a thumbs up, very nice and self-confident. "I think here in Nordic countries, you will not be abused at all. Your first time like this in front of a customer?" Martina nodded, her mouth just too dry to speak. Then Henri said that there were only 2 of them because Jonas was ill. So they went in and signed up. When the contacts came from the customer, Martina turned pale. In addition to Henry's main contact, her neighbors at the table approached her from breakfast. On the one hand it was extremely embarrassing for her, on the other hand she was relieved, because the 2 gentlemen had already seen her quite en femme. On the way to the meeting room, the person you were talking to from the morning dropped back a bit and spoke to Martina. "Interesting mix of clothes. Why don't you dress fully as a woman for our meeting?" Martina smiled, as my colleague was not aware of my feminine part, and in business I am only known as a man. He nodded, but wasn't satisfied. But you mix up, so your shoes suit your suite, even if they are gender different. And you have your breasts still on, right? To be honest, I like both on you, this mix and fully feminine. Martina just breathed a thank you. After the meeting, Mr. Kovacic, who had already spoken to Martina at breakfast, gave her another business card, although they had already exchanged them at the beginning of the meeting. Martina instinctively turned it over and found a German mobile number and a short note on the back. I would be happy to see you again. And Martina smiled at him. After saying goodbye, Henri asked if she would like to come to the Finnish office, but she politely declined. They said goodbye, and Martina disappeared in the direction of the toilets. She looked around to see if anyone was nearby, but couldn't see anyone. Then she quickly slipped into the women's room and disappeared into a stall. She took off her suit and quickly put her costume back on. Then she took out her jewelry and wig, so that outwardly Martina was once again a woman. She picked out her makeup and her purse and left the cabin. She completed her morning light makeup in front of the mirror. Satisfied with the result, she left the toilet and went into the entrance hall. There she set up her smartphone and took a few pictures. She immediately sent one to Astrid via WhatsApp, to which she immediately received a thumbs-up emoji in response. And just a few seconds later, Astrid sent a photo of Martina in a suit with high heels, deep in conversation with Mr. Kovacic. The only comment was, "I'm proud of you." Martina realized that Astrid also knew Henri well and that she had obviously asked him for the corresponding picture. Nevertheless, she felt a little queasy because now her biggest secret wasn't one anymore and more people knew about it. She took a deep breath and left the building. Outside, Henri was still waiting. "Hi Martina, Astrid asked me to wait for you. As you might know by now, she informed me before we met. Therefore I was not too surprised then and now. And she was really truthful. You're a wonderful woman. Come, I'll take you to the office." Martina was so flabbergasted that she followed without resistance, although she would now go to the Finnish colleague's office dressed as a woman. Once there, nobody took any notice of the colleague from Germany, not even when Henri took her to lunch with other colleagues. When she was doing some work in the afternoon, Astrid called her. "Hi sweetie, how are you? Is everything okay?" Martina replied with a laugh, "Yes, you little beast. What are you up to? Do you want to change me completely?" "Oh God, no. But I really enjoy pushing you over your limits again and again. And you are such a beautiful woman that it would be a shame if you kept it secret. Do you want me to pick you up from the airport tonight? We could go out to eat then." Martina's heart jumped when Astrid asked her that. "Yes, very much. I land around 8:30, she replied. "Fine, I'll be there then." "About Amsterdam again?" Martina confirmed that, and she was really looking forward to the evening with Astrid. Just a minute later, however, a new task came up. Martina should buy nail polish to match her lipstick and paint her fingernails and toenails. That was nothing unusual at first, but the task went even further. Martina should buy a pair of open, high-heeled shoes and get help trying them on. But she shouldn't wear anything under her skirt anymore and thus show her specialty to the seller, so to speak. "You are gorgeously crazy." Martina only answered. She said goodbye to Henri and made her way to the city of Helsinki. In the center she found a perfumery where she bought a very expensive nail polish to match the lipstick, and then she looked for a quiet corner to implement Astrid's request. In a small park she found a bench which was not immediately visible. She still looked around several times before she took off her pantyhose and panties under her skirt. Since she had freshly shaved her legs that morning, she decided not to wear stockings. which in her opinion would not go with open-toed shoes anyway. Then she painted both her toenails and her fingernails. On the way to the park, she passed 2 shoe shops, which she now headed for. At first she just wandered through the shelves in the first one until she found a stunning shoe. Since Martina, with shoe size 40, was still within the normal range of women's shoes, she could normally do without advice, but here it was part of the task. She now filmed her purchase to show Astrid in the evening. With the 12 centimeters high shoe, which only had a thin leather strap around his toes at the front and otherwise only a leather strap that had to be tied around his lower leg, Martina was looking for a saleswoman. She approached a young girl and asked her in English if she could help her. The young saleswoman looked for the right second shoe in a friendly manner and asked if she should also help Martina put it on. Martina said yes, and thanked her immediately. She sat down on one of the available sofas and opened her legs as she slipped off her high heels. The saleswoman squatted in front of Martina and helped her into the thin loop with her toes. Then she started tying the leather strap around Martina's calf, inevitably looking up Martina's skirt. The saleswoman suddenly blushed and got tangled up with the leather strap. "Sorry, I tuned out for a moment," the young girl apologized. "I have to say sorry, I wouldn't surprise you or offend you." She then smiled. "You did not offend me, madam. I only did not reckon a pretty woman as you may have a cock. But I like it." Then she helped Martina into the second shoe and Martina walked through the store. She felt indescribably sexy in the very high-heeled sandals and knew that she would buy these shoes. Nevertheless, she asked the saleswoman for help in undressing. The young girl took that as an invitation and bravely reached under Martina's skirt. Martina looked at her in astonishment, but didn't resist. The young girl looked around briefly and then pushed up Martina's skirt so that she could massage her cock openly. When Martina's penis was already a bit stiff, the saleswoman bent over it and took it into her mouth with relish. Martina closed her eyes and enjoyed the intensive treatment until it stopped abruptly. An incoming voice they heard, which was another customer on his phone, they stopped for that moment. After attending to the new customer, briefly and ushering him to the next saleswoman. Then she got up and knelt in front of Martina again. She grabbed Martina's penis and massaged him to orgasm. Martina sprayed her load on the saleswoman's face. The young woman got up and looked at Martina. "Do you like the shoes?" Martina nodded, still a bit dazed. She replied, "Yes, I will buy them." A cheeky grin was the answer. "Okay, so please follow me to our cash desk." The saleswoman wiped her face with tissue paper and went to the checkout. When Martina first wanted to change her shoes, she just shouted that she should keep them on. So Martina quickly packed her old high heels in her suitcase and followed her to the cash register. After paying, Martina looked for a taxi to get to the airport. The significantly higher heels made it harder for her to walk, even though she felt very feminine. She saw a taxi rank 2 blocks down and staggered toward the front car. The driver was very courteous, immediately took her suitcase and opened the door for her. At the airport, Martina went to the counter and checked in her suitcase. She passed the security check as a matter of course and sat in a cafe until departure. Martina went through the last 2 days in her mind. She was discovered en femme by a colleague, spent a night with a wonderfully tender man and had wild, uninhibited sex in the middle of a shoe store. She inevitably had to grin and her skirt also bulged a little upwards. Especially when she continued to think about the night with Eric, she felt her excitement increase. This experience was simply indescribably beautiful, even if she could never imagine becoming a woman or kissing or touching another man in male mode. What do you think Astrid thinks about it? She asked herself, because Astrid had been Martina's secret crush for a long time. Then her flight was called and Martina had to distract herself quickly so as not to bulge her skirt too obviously. In Amsterdam, Martina wanted to buy a little something for Astrid because they had an appointment that evening. With the high-heeled sandals, Martina was not as fast as usual, so she had to hurry from the arrival gate across the airport to the gate of her connecting flight. She looked rather rushed as she quickly bought a small packet of chocolate pralines and then staggered on to the gate. Boarding had actually already started there and most of the passengers had already gone through. She quickly checked her makeup, but despite the rush, everything still looked fine. Then she showed her boarding pass and boarded the plane. The plane was fully booked and Martina was happy to only have her handbag and tablet with her. She then had to be the last to go to the window seat, so the other two passengers had to get up to let them through. In the aisle sat an elderly lady and in the middle a young man who studied her carefully. Martina made a mental note to shock him if he spoke to her. Martina had hardly settled into her seat when the person sitting next to her turned to her and spoke to her. "Are you traveling alone?" Martina smiled at him and replied in a deep male voice, "Yes, but my husband will pick me up at the airport." The color drained from the young man's face and he turned to the front. Smiling, Martina took her tablet and looked for a game to pass the time. That's all for today. See you in the next video. Till then, take care. Oh yes, please like, subscribe and share your feedback. It really means a lot to me.